The major breaking news out of the Middle East this morning. We are standing by for the Israeli cabinet to approve the ceasefire deal that could have all Israeli hostages released within days. The Hamas terror attacks on Israel were 2 years ago now, almost exactly. As we sit here at what could be an historic moment, the question is, how have public opinions changed? CNN chief data analyst Harry Enten is here. 2 years, we are on the precipice of this big moment. Yes. So where does public opinion stand?
Yeah, this war caused a historic shift in public opinion on how Americans view the Middle East conflict. What are we talking about here? Who voters sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Back in October of 2023, it was the Israelis by 48 points. Look at this shift. Now we're talking about the Palestinians by a point. I looked back at every single poll that I could possibly find since this question was first asked in the 1980s. This is the first time ever in which the Palestinians had any sort of lead on this particular question. It is very clear that this war caused a historic shift away from the Israeli position in the Middle East conflict and towards the Palestinians when it comes to who Americans and voters sympathize with. This, of course, was led by Democrats, because what are we talking about? We went from Democrats favoring the Israelis by 26 points to the Palestinians by 46 points. That is a shift, John, quick math in my head, of over 70 percentage points. But overall, the first time ever in which more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians over the Israelis. Truly a historic shift.
It's a big shift overall, a big shift within the Democratic Party. What about Republicans?
Yeah, it's not just Democrats, though, in which we have seen a real shift of opinion. Even within the Republican ranks, this war has caused real division. What are we talking about? Well, we often talk about by age within the Democratic Party, but what about by age within the Republican ranks? Who Republicans sympathize more with? You see a massive, huge age divide. Those 50 and over, what we see amongst Republicans is they sympathize more with the Israelis by 66 points. But look at the voters under the age of 50. They do sympathize with the Israelis, but just by 25 points. We're talking about a 40-point difference, with the youngest Republicans being far more sympathetic to the Palestinian position than older Republicans are.
That's a huge gap right there. Let's just say that.
That is a huge gap, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party adjusts going forward.
All right, the news of the ceasefire deal, the possible return of all Israeli hostages, what's likely to be the reaction to that?
Yeah, I think Americans are really going to like it. And why do I say that? Because just look at the polling. A permanent Israeli-Hamas ceasefire, that is negotiating one. Highly important. That is extremely or very important, 51% of Americans. And then you see somewhat important, 31%. Over 80% of Americans said the idea of negotiating a ceasefire, a permanent one, was at least somewhat important. So the bottom line is, I think a lot of Americans are really going to like this.
They want this over. Harry,
Yes.
and really interesting numbers this morning. Thank you very much.
John.
And as the president is celebrating this breakthrough in Gaza, he is set to convene his cabinet for a meeting this morning. He has also said that he may travel to the Middle East in the coming days. CNN's Elaine Treen live at the White House this morning. It seems there's going to be a lot going on there today. What are you hearing?
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, people in the building behind me, Kate, of course, are celebrating this. The president himself speaking with a lot of reporters last night, eager to get this news out. One of the things that he told Sean Hannity with Fox News, he said that there was, quote, no dark clouds around all of this. And he also laid out what could come next, because as Nick laid out, really the agreement that they struck in Egypt is about the first part of this plan, about releasing the hostages. And there are so many more points to that 20-point plan that still need to be worked out, of course. One of the biggest ones being the disarmament of Hamas and figuring out, who's going to be governing Gaza, particularly since one of the key parts of that plan is that Hamas will no longer be running Gaza. And the president addressed that in that interview with Sean Hannity, essentially saying that he believes they're going to set up what he's calling a Council of Peace. Listen.
I think you're going to see people getting along, and you'll see Gaza being rebuilt. We're forming a council that the Council of Peace, we think it's going to be called, and it's going to be very powerful.
So we have to look at what that's going to look like as well. And as you mentioned, Kate, the president has made clear that he wants to travel to the Middle East in the coming days, particularly around the release of hostages. He said last night that he's expecting the hostages to be released on Monday. One senior White House official told us, though, that that clock could actually start sooner, because once the Israeli cabinet votes on this first part of this agreement, it's going to be 72 hours that the hostages are going to need to be released. The president said that he's looking at traveling to Israel and also perhaps Egypt. But I do think big picture here, this is a remarkable accomplishment for this president and for this administration, something they've been working for since the beginning of his second term. They've hit a lot of speed bumps, of course, and different obstacles in a lot of these negotiations. So this is a huge deal. Of course, we have to see whether or not the rest of this 20-point plan can get negotiated, what that is going to look like, and really the long-term governance of Gaza moving forward.
Yes, but all sides seeming to take this moment as a win across the board. It's good to see you, Elena. Thank you so much.